All right, my brothers from the community. This is a premium video on earning 14% return on investment on your money. This was by far the most popular topic that I proposed, so let's hop straight into it. Shouldn't take me more than about 20 minutes to explain this to you. I was going to do it on a whiteboard at first, but I figured, what the fuck, let's do this on the drive because I get to kind of think a little bit more about it. Let me do the Batman origin story. So around, I don't know, it was about 1997, 98, I was really involved in this collection. It's Equifax, which was a credit bureau. And we always had these guys coming in that were trying to get the bill collectors to refer people in debt to them for mortgage financing. This was long before the mortgage crisis in 2008 and everything that built up towards that, but it's part and parcel of actually what created it. By the way, private equity loans and mortgages have been around for a long, long time. This is nothing that's new. It's just not known by that many people. It's kind of a hidden gem still, I think. So there's a lot of opportunities for guys out there to make money at this. I should say, first of all, before I continue on with the Batman origin story, there's two things that must exist for you to be successful. There's one, you've got to have access to money. Now that might be borrowing against the equity in your house. You might have 200 grand cash, but you have to have access to money if you're going to do private equity loans. And again, back to the Batman origin story. So sitting in collections, these guys are coming in. They're always trying to get the bill collectors to send out deals for private mortgages. And a lot of them would go out and come back, and they'd come in and they'd be quite busy with it, actually. They would show up in these like great brand new Mercedes and BMWs and, you know, real flashy cars, and I was always wondering what the fuck they were up to, because, you know, here I was, mid-late 20s wondering, what are these guys doing right? Because I'm clearly doing something wrong if I'm driving around in my Subaru at the time, WRX, if you guys remember those. So the other part of where they were making their money from was from private equity mortgages. So not only would they place the mortgage and get their broker fee as an agent, but they would also lend money to people on top of that and get about a 14% rate of return. So they're double dipping. And I have a friend to this day that still does that runs a mortgage outfit that I push most of my deals through still. And even the guys in my office where I'm going now will refer our customers where they don't fit our program out for mortgage refinancing, and he's often lending out his own money. If you have a business that's tied into that, I would recommend keeping the borrowers at arm's length. So if my business is doing debt negotiation work, for example, I'm not going to lend them the money to get out of debt. I don't want to have any conflict of interest or be tied in any way whatsoever. That's just my preference. I mean, some guys in the mortgage industry will not only broker the deal, so they'll get the broker fee, which might be anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000, depending on how big it is, but they'll also get the interest on the private equity mortgage. So there's that. That's the Batman origin story. How does it work? One, you have to have access to cash, and two, you have to have a good relationship with some mortgage agents or brokerage. Ideally, a brokerage would be the best way to go. It's not that hard, but it's not easy at the same time. The amount of work that I do is very little. I mean, every deal, it might be a total of about 30 minutes work. A year goes by, I've made 14% of my money, provided there's no issues. Apologize for the lens flare. It is what you're going to get today, gentlemen. So that's really the overall. The ROI on it is you're going to double your money every 4 to 5 years. So let's use 100 grand as an example. So year one, if you're making 14% return, you're going to get $114,000 back. Year two, you're going to get $128,000 back plus the interest that you've compounded on the first $14,000. I can't do the math off the top of my head, but basically, by about year three, minus the compounding, you should be at about 170,000. Sorry, year four, you should be at 170,000. Plus you're getting late fees, plus you're getting mortgage statement fees, you're getting NSF fees, you're getting discharge fees. Basically, every time you do something, there's about a $250 fee. So they bounce a check, $250. They need a statement generated to pay out the mortgage, $250. They need a mortgage discharge statement. It's $250. So all of that adds up on top of the interest. And the way the interest usually works is you're going to charge more interest the riskier the deal. The risk assessment component of it, I should probably talk more in depth on this, but I'm gonna handle this as an overview in this video and try to do it in about 20 minutes because the risk assessment component is a totally different beast. But this is how you make the money. So essentially what you're doing is you're taking your cash, and rather than deposit it in the bank or put it in a mutual fund or something like that, you're putting it out in private equity mortgages. They're sent to people that are principal residents, so meaning they're the homeowner, so their home is their castle. They're living in the house. They obviously have skin in the game. They value it. The benefits are is you don't have to do anything to maintain the property, like guys that are renting out property. So guys that buy real estate and they rent it out to people, they're dealing with window repairs and maintenance, HVAC breaking down, the dishwasher's fucked up, the roof shingles need to get replaced every 10 to 20 years, whatever that might be, depending on where you live and the weather conditions. You deal with none of those things. The homeowner deals with all those things because they're borrowing the money from you and they're paying you usually interest only back. Sorry, back to the interest. I'm jumping around here. The interest is usually anywhere from minimum, if you're doing a second mortgage, 10.99%, maybe all the way up to 14.99%. If it's higher risk or higher ratio, you also charge a lender fee. So most of my average deals, depending on risk, are around 12.99. When I say 12.99, I'm saying 12.99% interest. Plus, there's anywhere from a 2 to 3% lender fee, depending on the deal. Again, you've got other fees that are administered on the loan throughout the course of the year, because they're usually 1 year interest-only loans, meaning they just pay the interest on the loan. So if they borrow $100,000 from you, they're paying back $100,000 a year later. In most cases, what do they use the money for? In most cases, for me, with what I'm getting involved in, they're paying out credit card debt. They're paying out Canada Revenue Agency because they screwed up on their taxes because they're Muppets. They lost their job and they fell behind on some stuff and they got to catch up. But it's really based solely or primarily on the property itself. You like the property, and then secondary to that is you like the borrower. I go for both because I've been burned before. And again, I think I'll go into more depth in another video kind of following up to this, but this is kind of to get the ball rolling, to get you guys thinking about it. I found it to be very safe. Okay, so I've got about half my money in what we call here in Canada an RRSP, so Canadian guys will be familiar with it. The American guys, I think you've got, your American equivalent. I don't know what it's called, so I'm not even going to speculate. But this is something you should be able to do pretty much anywhere around the world. I know there's friends of mine in the States that do this, so this is not unique or just common to the Canadian marketplace. I'm sure you can find places in Australia, England, places in Europe that'll do this as well. But essentially, in those two portfolios with the RRSP versus the one that I've got, which I use under Canadian Western Trust. So if you're a Canadian guy, you can move the cash over to Canadian Western Trust, still under the retirement savings program, so it's tax-free. I definitely encourage you to do it in a tax-free basis, otherwise you've got to pay income tax on the interest that you earn. And my mutual fund portfolio through my bank, it's a wash, okay? It's up, it's down, depending on the stock market, depending on how good I am with choosing my investments, which I'm not great at, I'll be honest with you. It's more often than not just a wash. I mean, I'm usually up, 8 to 12%. But right now, lately, with the way the market's been, it's literally a wash. Like, I was looking at it the other day, and my market value versus my book value is nearly identical. Then I go over to Canadian Western Trust and I log in there, and I take a look at my book value versus my market value, and I've pretty much doubled my money since I started doing this about 4.5, 5 years ago on a larger scale. I've been doing it for about 7 years on a smaller scale. So once you figure it out, it's quite safe because you've got loans going out to people, usually no more than 80% loan to value. And what that means is if their house is valued at $100,000, we'll use $100,000 to keep a simple number out there, you never loan them more than $80,000, right? So you can do the math on that. You just take, if the home value is $500,000, you multiply that by 0.8, and that'll give you the 80% loan to value rule. That depends on where you live. If the guy's rural, like I'm driving across the 407 right now, and there's rural homes up here, I'll see deals come my way from here, from areas like this from time to time. I won't go to 80%. I'll do that in places like, urban townships where the homes on city lines, like city water, city electricity, city sewage, and all that sort of stuff, just because those houses move quicker. So if there's a problem with the homeowner not being able to pay, I need to go power of sale, or they decided they want to get out of the house to kind of move along, it's easier for them to move out of the house. Those houses turn over quicker than guys that are sitting on 2.9 acres on well and septic systems, right? I might only go 70 or 75% to them, depending on what the property looks like and where it's at. But urban centers, like in the greater Toronto area, sure, I'll go up to 80%, depending on the market conditions. Lately, around here, the market's been pretty soft. So when the market softens and I see that it's not, moving, like you want the home value to be worth more in a year's time than what it is today to make sure that your investment's safe. If the market's soft, I might only go 75% loan to value. If you got a strong market and property values are going up 5 or 10% year over year, which they have done in the area that I live in, I might go 85% loan to value, right? So how do you place the money, I guess is probably going to be the next question. So that's how it works, kind of the Batman origin story. How do you place the money should probably be the next question is, you've got to have access to a good chunk of money, because the first thing that they're going to ask me, like whenever I message my mortgage brokerage, the main guys that I deal with, it's like, hey guys, I'm sitting on cash, can I take a look at some deals, is really the way that I'll phrase it, like literally word for word. The next thing they'll say is how much you got, right? I've got a home equity line of credit on my house that I can tap into if I want to borrow against a house, and I've got cash moving in and out of deals from time to time. Sometimes I have the money all lent out, sometimes I'm sitting on it. Sometimes I have deals that come my way when I have all the money lent out, and I'll borrow against the house just to put out a deal, because I don't want to let these guys down. These guys need to lend out money. A lot of these mortgage agents can hustle and they can find deals, but they don't have their own money to lend out on. So one of the things that you got to remember is if they're going to rely on you as a source of private money to lend out on mortgages, you can't say no that often. I mean, you have to say no to protect your capital, because if you lend out on stupid deals, you make stupid choices, you're going to get stupid results, sort of things. And I've done that once, and I lost $56,000 basically. But for the most part, that $56,000 lesson taught me to make money on the other deal. So, there's a slim chance that it's probably going to happen. I think everybody's going to lose money on one deal at one point. But you have to make sure you're getting money out. You're going to say no to the crap deals, but at the same time, you got all your money lent out, you don't have any cash you're sitting on, they send you a attractive deal, borrow against your house, right? Like that's one of the reasons why I'm telling you, if you're going to do this, it's a good idea to own your own property and have a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. That's what it stands for, HELOC. Most of you guys should be familiar with that. The younger guys in the community, get familiar with it. That's how it works. But that's essentially it. I mean, and then you have to have a great relationship with a good firm that's getting the kind of deals that you want. So don't go talking to the firms that are putting out money for first-time home buyers, for that deal a lot with real estate agent, things like that. You want to find a mortgage brokerage company that deals in second mortgages, because that's primarily what you're putting the money out on, is second mortgages. You're not doing first mortgages just because the ROI is not great. The money is a lot safer when you lend it out, but realistically, it's banks that are taking those deals. So you're the guy that's taking on the hard to place money deals. If you're doing the bank deals, you're making no interest. You're making a few points on your money, which is peanuts. I mean, it's like the juice is not really worth the squeeze. You put money out on second mortgages like I do, you're behind the first, your placement is second, but you're still relatively safe provided you vet the property and you vet the borrower accordingly. So skip the real estate agent type of mortgage broker firms. You want to find the ones that do mostly second mortgages or debt consolidation. And the easy way to find them, if you want to approach them, is just go to Kijiji or your, I'm going to say like Craigslist classifieds, any of your classifieds, and then just search for debt consolidation loans. And then any mortgage brokerage firm that comes up that says that they specialize in placing hard money, or you've been declined by your bank, or some of the catchphrases you might see is banks say no, we say yes, stuff like that. Those are the mortgage companies that you want to approach and say, hey guys, I'm a private lender, I've got access to $500,000 or $1 million or whatever it is. I'd like to place some money. If you don't have any experience, again, I mean, I can show you what the forms look like in Canada, but for the most part, I mean, half my audience is in the States, if I'm being honest, so I'm not even sure what the forms look like over there. So you'd have to get familiar on that. I'm sure there's a private mortgage course you can look for. So if you Google, you know, private equity lending or private mortgage lending plus your state, you'll find some kind of course or some kind of information package that you can get. I mean, there's probably even like a YouTube video that details it. It'll be on a small channel with less than 1,000 views, I'm sure, but I guarantee there's something out there. I mean, a few years ago, I did look at putting out content like this, but the market is so small. I mean, guys are more interested in obviously chasing women and tail and chasing excellence than they are specific niches like this. So this is like the honeypot, guys. This is a sweet spot out there that not a lot of people know of, that you can get a good ROI on, that's relatively safe. It's pretty hard to lose money. You have to make some stupid choices to lose money, and I've done that. Doesn't take a lot of work. You know, like I said, each deal, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes of work tops, and I'm getting usually on average about 14% back on my money. So like I said, you can double your money every 4 to 5 years. Do it right. It's real safe. It's low amount of work. All you basically do is you cash checks, and it's funny because I didn't cash my checks for the first of the month, but what I do is after I mean, you know, this is on a personal side, I'll cash them, I'll staple them together. So I was traveling when I had to take the picture of those, and I just use my mobile phone half the time. It's like you take a picture of the check, you cash them. If it's under your retirement savings plan, under your RRSP, for example, like in Canada, you don't have to do anything. Canadian Western Trust administers the whole thing for you. They'll take the payments for you. They'll send you a message if there's an NSF. You have to do very, very little. It's like all they'll do is they'll send you an email and say, hey, this person's requesting a discharge to pay out the mortgage. Can you send it over to the lawyers? And it's very, it's a standard form. It's super easy to do. So I'm not really sure what else to cover in this video. That's kind of like an overview and how it works. I mean, obviously you're going to have to do a little work for yourself to study local laws. I could do a follow-up to this more specific to the Canadian marketplace for those of you guys out there that have access to cash, or even you know, a large home equity loan against your home that you can borrow against. But that's really the meat and potatoes of it. There's really not much else that I need to break down aside for the details for the Canadian market. Give me 1 second.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Could I get a medium blonde roast coffee with 2 cream?
Sure, anything else?
That's all.
Just have any else.
Thanks.
No problem.
All right, brothers. So I'll leave it at that. I want to thank you for watching this video and being part of the men's community. It helps me out a ton to be able to serve you guys like this. I hope this video helps and provides some insight, at least a starting point for guys around the world. If you're Canadian and you really want me to go more in depth, like the step-by-step and the forms that you got to use, and maybe templates, for dealing with things like NSFs, there's some hassles along the way. People will bounce checks, and it's like you have to know how to be a bill collector, which for me was very easy because that's where I came from when I worked for Equifax. So, dealing with somebody that, it's that whole don't make your problems my problems. Somebody will every once in a while be like, oh, well, I can't clear the check because I didn't get paid because my company's not paying me and blah, blah, blah. And they've got this manufactured store, and it's like, don't make your problems my problems, dude. This is a mortgage. You don't pay, I go power of sale. You guys are out of the house and I pay off the mortgage that way, sort of thing. So, I mean, you got to be, this is a business. This is not about, being somebody's friend. You're not trying to make friends here. You're not trying to add to your Facebook friends list. This is like, hey, I'm lending money and I want my ROI on it. And, they obviously value the service because they screwed up and banks won't give them the money, and you're there to, basically bail them out. And bailing them out comes at a cost. So I will leave it at that. Thanks for watching today's video. I'll follow up and see if there's an appetite for more specific details, especially for the Canadian guys. See you guys later. Peace.